All right, everyone. More anonymous sources claim that Donald Trump Jr. was soliciting help against the Clinton campaign on, I guess, his dad's behalf, because he's the one who actually was running, from some Russians, actually, with the cover of an adoption agency sort of story. This doesn't make any sense. These are, again, unnamed sources coming from the New York Times, so I'm not sure that I can trust them, since they themselves have declared, oh no, we're not going to have like fair discussion of Trump's policies because we presume that he's evil and stuff like this. So there's number one. Number two, this involves Donald Trump's son, who is indeed not an elected official, not an official campaign person. It's not like Ivanka, who's sitting in on the G20 summit there and talking to Merkel and Putin and people like that. We're talking about someone who is involved with Trump's business dealings. Number three, it's sort of like the claim of, oh, Trump owes billions to Russian oligarchs. Yeah, because they invest in his private businesses that are now again in the hands of his son. If it turned out that the story being spun here is true, it wouldn't even matter. I'll tell you why. Donald Trump Jr. is saying, yeah, I went over to Russia. He was with Manafort, actually, at the time. Met with this Natalia something or other as part of, like, adoption services stuff from Russia. Yeah, clear evidence of collusion. Tried to adopt a kid. You know, the Democrats usually think it's wonderful if you're adopting somebody from another country. I guess it's because they have this hate boner for Russia. He didn't decide to go adopt a child from the Philippines or Poland or Nigeria or something. It was Russia, so it suddenly becomes a problem. And apparently, according to him, this woman then proceeded afterwards to begin talking about the Magnitsky Act and stuff like that related to like the ban on certain groups within Russia. Of course, Russia has responded to that act by saying, okay, well, we're not going to let people in the U.S. adopt Russian children anymore because, of course, that was kind of in vogue. It's sort of like the buying Russian wives and stuff. Like some of these people with their McMansions, they want to be exotic, so they basically buy a kid from some less developed country, or they buy their wife from another country, and they think that it makes them cool. They think that it makes them more liberal, I guess, or something like that under the sun. Maybe Donald Trump Jr., I guess, exposed as a liberal or something like that should be the real headline. But if he didn't know beforehand that this was going to come up and that this woman was going to say, oh, I've got damaging info on Hillary Clinton, blah, blah, blah. Now, what I think actually happened here, here's my thoughts, my theory on what happened. Because he admits he did go to Russia. I think he went over there to look into adoption. Because he's like, oh, maybe I'll adopt a kid or something, you know, it'll be fun. I don't have to raise them through, like, literal babyhood because, you know, I'm a Trump and we're not really much, the males of the family don't appear to be into the child-rearing thing for the most part. So I'll pay the Russian government thousands of bucks or whatever, and I'll have a kid who's like 3 or 4, so that they're already in like the early stages of adolescence. It'll be a lot easier, and then I can imprint upon them and make it, you know, turn them into a successful business person too, to carry on the Trump legacy. And I want a kid from Russia because reasons. And so goes over there, he meets with the person heading this Russian lawyer. And then unknown to him, the Russian lawyer's like, aha, the Trumps, oh, they're probably going to be in the White House, so I'll lean on him a little. Specifically related to the adoption thing, which is that Russia has banned U.S. individuals from adopting Russian children, generally speaking, in reply to this act that was passed condemning certain groups within Russia for, like, I think it was human trafficking or something. So that gets brought up, and then apparently began spouting off about having damaging Hillary Clinton information. When it appears that Donald Trump Jr. didn't believe her and said, well, she was, like, talking out her ass. So it's just a bunch of bullshit. And so if he didn't foresee that happening, it wouldn't be a problem. Even if he did, if no attempt was made to actually secure damaging information, then regardless of the reasons that that attempt wasn't made, whether it's because the person was clearly lying or because he was disinterested, it wouldn't have any bearing on the campaign. And even if he were to try, if he wasn't coordinating with Trump's actual campaign, if he was just hanging out with Manafort trying to adopt a kid, it wouldn't even legally matter. So I'm not sure exactly why people are so upset over this. It's like Trump, as a private business person in the past, does business with Russians because somebody wants to invest in a golf course or a hotel or an apartment building that Trump is building because they know there's a good possibility of a decent return in the contractual sense. They know, I invest 10 million, I get 15 million back. What's there not to like about this deal? I've got the capital, I'll capitalize upon it. People want to assume that his business dealings then get him controlled by foreign states or by foreign individuals. That's not how it works. They're more reliant upon Trump because he's the one with the brand image that matters to get them that return in the first place. If anything, some of these people probably owe him favors by this point. I would think that would be, by the way, a potential advantage if one off the books and perhaps a little bit dubious in nature as far as other states are concerned. Other people invest in his properties. His son goes to talk to a Russian adoption agency, and people want to act as though Trump himself had something to do with it. Trump is not responsible for everybody around him. Donald Trump Jr. is not a political elected official. He's just his son. That's like saying, oh, Obama's daughter ran a red light. It's Obama's fault. No, when people were saying that when, I think it was his older daughter, when she appeared on video and it looked like she was smoking weed, a lot of people got hot under the collar and they said, oh, what a terrible parent. Obama's responsible for this. She should go to federal prison. Who fucking cares? Just because you happen to be the spawn of somebody who's in an elected office doesn't mean that person has to take responsibility for every goddamn thing you do. It's like the Bush family, yeah, but Bush's daughters get drunk. Bush's daughters do crazy things. Oh, they're Bushes. It's kind of expected. And the Trumps do business-related things. It's kind of expected. Doesn't mean that Donald Trump, President Trump himself, had any foreknowledge this is going on. Donald Trump Jr. didn't have to... It's not like he's the mafia kingpin and his kids have to get his permission to go to the bathroom. That appears to be what the New York Times is saying. If there was wrongdoing at all, it wouldn't affect Donald Trump. It would affect his son, because his son was the one involved in that. Once again, we have anonymous sources proclaiming things that may not even have a full basis in reality. We have several explanations, none of which necessarily make full sense when they're coming from the New York Times. They're basically saying, oh, well, this is evidence of collusion with the Russians. Trump must have been involved. No, not necessarily. That's like saying it's guilt by association. It's like, oh, you have a friend who's done something wrong, therefore you're somehow guilty of it. Oh, well, you knew your friend was a drunk, so the fact that he crashed his car is your fault, even though you were 5,000 miles away at the time, or something like that. This happens on the legacy media, though, loves guilt by association. It's like every time they talk about the alt-right, they drag people in that are... They talk about Sargon constantly when they're talking about the far right, as though Sargon was far right. It's guilt by association, though, because he occasionally tweets to, like, Lauren Southern or something like that. He has his own views, he has his own responsibilities, he says his own things, makes his own content. Somehow he's responsible for people that he talks to on a non-regular basis. I've had people try to aim this criticism at me before. Oh, you talked, I had some idiot on Twitter, oh, you talked to Richard Spencer, therefore you're all right. No, I'm really not, but I'm willing to have a decent conversation with people who are, because I don't hate their guts, because I don't get into all of this nonsense that the corporate media and some of the alarmists out there get into. Oh, it's an army of Nazis, they're going to rise up, they're fascists. It's up. No, not really. No, not really. But you can keep believing that if you want to. It's guilt by association. The New York Times hit piece will fail just like these others. But it's like the boy who cried wolf. The legacy media has rambled about what Trump is doing wrong and spun so many obvious tall tales about him for so many months now, people are becoming numb to it. It's like, you see, there isn't as much coverage of this as there was, like, the last wave of Russia bullshit. And that one wasn't as pronounced as prior and so on back. It's getting weaker over time. Like, the legacy media is setting itself up for failure because they've tarred and feathered Trump so many times that at the very least, those who still support Trump are never going to believe any of these claims. Even if it were true, you could offer people positive evidence. Yes, Trump took $1 billion bribe from some Chinese bureaucrat or something. They wouldn't even believe you at this point. They'd say, ah, yeah, fake news. and who can blame them? They've been desensitized towards the idea of Trump doing things that are totally underhanded because that claim is made over and over and over again, even when it involves people who aren't Donald Trump. It's Michael Flynn, it's Paul Manafort, it's Donald Trump Jr., it's Ivanka, it's Jared Kushner. It's somebody related to or in the inner circle of Trump that supposedly did something fishy, even when, by the way, nothing fishy went on, like Michael Flynn. He got cleared by the FBI. His relationship with Turkey, not Russia, was the real problem the entire time. Yeah, he should have been canned. It was necessary to can him, but over the Russian bullshit, he actually did nothing specifically wrong. And a lot of people still talk about him like he's some major connection between Trump and direct Russian collusion, even though he got cleared on it by the FBI. And there are still people who add him to lists of reasons why Trump colludes with or is controlled by Vladimir Putin or something like that. They don't even realize it because they still pay attention to the corporate media. But those people never liked Trump to begin with. Anyone that paid attention and took seriously MSNBC or CNN during the election, they never supported Trump and they never will support Trump. So he doesn't really care when the New York Times or any of these other groups spins one of these hit pieces. It is yellow journalism. That is what it is. It is a form of propaganda. Anonymous sources from within the White House say that Trump enjoys wiping his ass with the U.S. flag. Okay. Anonymous sources say that Melania gets off on urinating out of the White House windows. Anonymous sources say that Barron Trump leaves skid marks across the floor. Anonymous sources say that Michael Flynn and Rex Tillerson are in a gay relationship with one another. They're anonymous sources. I'm not going to trust them. You claim to have journalistic integrity and you claim that the sources actually exist. Why should I believe that? There's no, your trustworthiness is no greater than any other random individual that I could select. Like some random person online says, oh, somebody from the White House just called me and said Trump is a Satanist or something like that. Well, that's just a claim. You're saying, oh, I can't reveal my source. That's because you're probably full of shit. Why wouldn't I aim the same general logic at a corporation which simply has an FCC license and then pretends to be part of the press? It's not really part of the press. They're not releasing information. They're releasing a bunch of fiction at this point. I would hazard a guess that that's not exactly informing the population. That's about all. Peace out.